A political scramble in France to thwart the rise of right-wing politicians seems to have worked, but the country's parliament is at a virtual standstill. Last week, after the first round of voting, the far-right National Rally appeared headed for a possible majority. But going into the second round, which took place over the weekend, the left and center forged a plan to consolidate their support and deny the far-right a chance at power. With all the votes counted, a coalition of left-wing groups known as the New Popular Front will claim the most seats in Parliament. The centrist coalition of President Emmanuel Macron came in second, and the far-right party came in third. No group has enough for a governing majority. Angela Charlton joins me now from Paris. She's the Western Europe news director for the Associated Press. Thank you so much for being with us. Last week, the far right was in the lead. What happened?
Indeed. A week ago, Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally really dominated the first round voting. But then this left-wing alliance came together really at the last minute. It was just a week before the two rounds. And they won the most seats in the runoff, which was a surprise to many people, including in that left-wing party. And then they were followed by Macron's centrist and then the far right in third place. As you mentioned, this means no one has a majority, which is an unprecedented situation in France. So Macron will likely try to build a coalition or an alliance of some kind with left-wing, moderate left-wing candidates. But it will be a challenge given that no party has a clear majority and many people do not like Macron. And this was because largely of this strategic voting that you mentioned. It's something that France has seen before, but many people thought would no longer happen. It's called a Republican front here, when voters elsewhere on the spectrum all come together to keep the far right from power, sometimes voting for candidates whose views they don't necessarily like, just to keep the far right from power.
It's such a fascinating collective action move because often in other political systems, maybe even in the United States, people moan that people might have a viewpoint, but they can never actually move quickly. This seems like an affirmation of Macron's decision to call the snap election. Is that a fair way to read it, or is it more subtle than that?
It's more complicated than that. Where on the one hand, okay, a week ago, we thought Macron was going to be wiped out and we'd have the first far-right government in France since the Nazi occupation in World War II. That's obviously not where we are today. But if you take a broader look, I mean, Macron's party lost dozens of seats in parliament. Marine Le Pen's National Rally gained dozens of seats in parliament. And Macron is really weaker than he's ever been as president. He's heading to NATO this week for a summit, for example, where he is domestically very weakened. So we're looking at a complicated situation here. And some of this, too, I think for voters, really people looked at this prospect of this far-right government and really weren't ready ultimately to hand that much power to the National Rally, the far right of Marine Le Pen.
And so, Angela, there is ferment, obviously, even by French standards, to get something done on a set of policy issues. Is there one or two particular ones that are important and that will now presumably be harder to address because of the coalition will be a little bit messier? Or maybe there's some way in which this new coalition can actually address those issues?
I think we're looking right at the moment at a bit of a deadlock, a hung parliament. And what that means right now is ultimately status quo for the moment. But going forward, there's not much that Macron or France really can do. So you've got these parties with very different views, notably on questions of taxes or the minimum wage, which the left-wing coalition wants to raise. Also on Ukraine, that had been more of a concern with the far right. But it just means that Macron really can't go forward with a lot of things for now. He has his prime minister tried to resign. Macron said no, stick around for a little while, notably because France is about to host the Olympics. So I think we're probably going to have just a caretaker government for the coming weeks until they can try to build some kind of new alliance. And then we'll see if they can move forward really with any policies that have any real impact on France or internationally.
Angela Charlton with the Associated Press, thank you so much for being with us.